Hi, AP students. We're going to practice some problems here to make sure that we know what we're doing. So just kind of follow along. Some of them are the same as on your slides that you would have gotten from the notes, but you don't really need those as long as you're doing some work and along with these. So some of them kind of change a little bit, but that's okay. All right, first one here. Go ahead and pause it. You're finding the value of GDP in this situation. This is a very common multiple choice question that will be asked. Okay, so take a second, figure it out, and then I'll show you how I figured it out. Okay, so the big thing is to know what is included and how it is included in our GDP calculation. So first of all, we can't keep track of illegal drug activity. Okay, we're not going to keep that. We don't know how to keep track of it. We don't have accurate stats, so we're not going to keep track of it. If you remember, we have a simple equation. It's consumption plus business investment plus government spending plus net imports and exports. So we're going to take exports, we're going to label that with an X, sorry, minus imports, we're going to label that with an M. Okay, that equals our GDP. All right, that's one quick little review. Hopefully you had your notes in front of you. So household consumption, we're adding that. Government purchases, we're adding it. And private investment, we're adding it. Okay, exports and imports, I'm going to group together. All right, and I'm just going to say, hey, listen, we exported less than we imported. So that's going to be a negative number, minus 400. You put all those things together, 2,000 plus 1,500 plus 1,000. Okay, that's 4,500 minus 400. Your final answer should be 4,100 billion dollars. All right, very common multiple choice question, one that's super easy as long as you keep the information straight that you need to know. All right, next one here. We're going to ask you for a little bit more information. We're looking for the nominal GDP, the real GDP for 2 different years. We're going to look for the deflator here. And then we kind of throw you another little curveball and just ask the inflation rate of entertainment. Take a minute. Go ahead and figure it out. Show your work so you know what you did incorrectly if that happens. And I'll solve it here shortly. All right, so nominal GDP in 2014. All righty, I'm just going to plug in I'm just going to kind of show you the numbers here so you can check them. 66 plus 112 plus 21 equals 199. That's going to be our base year. All right, so our nominal GDP is 199. I'll put a box around it and try to keep things straight. We also know that our real GDP from our base year is going to be the same as our nominal GDP. Okay, we got those by multiplying these numbers. All right, for 2015, nominal GDP, easy to find. That's not the one that people screw up. All right, so we've got 30 times 250, etc. I'm going to end up with 503 in this case. Okay, and you can check your math there. All right. My real GDP, what I've got to do is, this is where people kind of get messed up sometimes, is I've got to take the price from 2014 and apply it to the quantity from 2015, right? It's telling me the real story. So for that number, I'm going to end up with 368. All right. For my deflator, remember, my formula is nominal divided by nominal GDP divided by real GDP. That's going to give me a number. Okay. And in this case, it's going to equal 503 divided by 368. The way I remember is nominal stays in the numerator. All right. That number is going to give me right there, going to give me 1.36. I multiply it by 100 equals 136. All right. Now remember, our deflator for 2014 is going to be 199 divided by 199 times 100. That equals 100. We need that number. Okay. So our GDP deflator from 2015, sorry, according to 2014, to figure that out, we're taking 136 minus 100 divided by 100. Okay, and that's going to eventually equal 36 over 100 or 36%. Okay, so anyway, you should have that. Inflation rate from 2014 to 2015, we're looking at 350 to 450. So 1 divided by our original price, multiply it by 100 equals 28.5%. Okay, again, another problem that you might see in a short answer scenario, in part or in total of all these questions. Okay, as we kind of go through, you'll see they kind of sneak little questions in. Maybe not all 6 of these in this case, but they might sneak in a little inflation question within different concepts. Okay, so we've got 2 more countries here, a little bit more information that we need to find. Okay, you do not need to solve for B. We'll cross that off. And other than that, you can go ahead and take your shot here. So this is a question that they really might try to ask you in a short answer scenario, not every single year, but these are types of questions that they can ask. Go ahead and take a second. And try to see if you can solve this. All right, I'm going to take a second here and walk you through how I solved this problem, okay? You can kind of check your work, obviously, as you go. So first things first is we got to keep things as straight as possible. Know what you're looking at, right? So know your countries here, okay? And it's asking us for real GDP per capita for Banton and also for MENA. There's a whole lot of stuff going on, right? But again, where I'm going to start is I've got to figure out the GDP anyway. So that's where I'm going to start. All right. So we're looking at year 2. We've got to figure out the real GDP. So we're taking, all right, the the nominal GDP, and we've got to figure out, all right, with the GDP deflator, what the real GDP was. So the way I do that is I take 525, all right, which in this year is the same as 105, and then I set it equal to, right, x over 100, and I've got to cross multiply here, all right. So that's going to get me to, again, after I do the algebra, 500 divided by 25, okay, because that's my population, equals $20. So my real GDP for Banton, $20. I got to do the same thing over here. I've got different variables. All right, 390 divided by 130. Okay, I've got to set that equal to my GDP deflator, okay, or my original inflation. So I've got to take 390 over 130, x over 100 again. That gives me 300, all right, and that's going to be divided by my population of 10, all right, and that's going to be $30. Okay, so I've got those 2 solved there. Skip B, we don't need that one. For part C, what is our inflation, right? We're taking our deflator, right? We're just taking 5 divided by 100, and for Banton, we're taking 30 divided by 100 for our MENA. Okay, and the way that I do that, again, we take the original GDP, 105 minus 100, right? If it's asked us to show our work, divided by 100 times 100 equals 5%. Okay, do the same thing for MENA with 130 instead of 105 there. Skip D. Sorry, I didn't tell you to do that in the beginning. We haven't talked about nominal interest yet, having to do with borrowing money. Okay, so last thing here is assume that year 1 MENA is operating inside its production possibilities curve. Okay, and our curve remains unchanged. So we have our production possibilities curve. This is what it looks like. Remember, we don't even have to label necessarily a graph. All right. As a result of change in the real GDP, we're producing more stuff. That means that we need more people to be working. That means we're using resources more efficiently. Okay. It's asking you, and again, we can put year 1 anywhere that we want in here. It's asking you what happens to the production point. Okay, does it move closer or further away from the curve? Well, we're producing more stuff, so we're being more efficient. So I just drew a second thing here. Again, it's just asking you, does it move away or closer? It's moving closer. But again, as we use our resources more efficiently, it's going to move closer to the curve. Last little concept they want you to remember is it asks you what happens to cyclical unemployment. So that means that's the unemployment that obviously happens when there's either a shutdown in business. So whether or not you're getting hired or getting fired or whatever, when there's lots of business, the height of a business cycle, cyclical unemployment is low. When there's a lot of when there's no business, cyclical unemployment is high. But we have more business here, right? Because our GDP went up. So in the short run, our cyclical unemployment is going to decrease. Email me with questions on those. Last one, go ahead and take a look at it. All right, and again, I'll kind of solve it in front of you here as we move forward. So pause it, take a guess, and do your best there. All right, kind of combining all of our concepts here. Okay, it's first asking for our nominal GDP. Okay, we got a GDP deflator here. We got to keep that in mind. It kind of hides from us as it asks us our real GDP. But either way, we've got consumption will add, investment will add, exports will add, and then imports we're going to take away, and government spending we're going to add. GDP has nothing to do with taxes. We don't need to know that. So our nominal GDP, pretty straightforward for the year 2016. We add these up. Don't forget to take away the 50. We end up with $180. All right. Now our real GDP, we got to go and do what we did on the previous problems. So we've got 180 over 90 is the same as what over 100. Okay, so you do that quick math, cross multiply, all right, it should equal $200 for our real GDP. All right, real GDP per capita, we've got to take into account this population. All right, 200, our total GDP, our real GDP in this case, divided by our population is 50. That equals $4. All right, so we've got that figured out. Debbie, it says, is a citizen of the country of Wayland and owns a computer software firm in Paddyland. Is that included? Is her the output included in Paddyland's nominal GDP? Absolutely, yes. It is a business investment. Okay, the stuff. Remember, the definition of GDP is the market value of all goods and services produced within a given period of time within a country's borders. Okay, this is included. If you want to get more specific in business investment. All right. GDP deflator for Paddyland in 2015 was 110. So again, it didn't really give us the original base year, right? But we do know the base year was 100. We know that all the time. But it does say that the deflator in 2015 was 110. So in 2016, our deflator was 90. Were we experiencing inflation, deflation, or do we not have enough information? Deflation. Okay. Our GDP deflator went down. Okay. So deflator increased. Alrighty. And then we're going to calculate the unemployment rate. We're going to go up here. So we've got a few different things that we've got to keep in mind. We've got to figure out the unemployed people. All right. So remember, unemployed divided by labor force. Okay. And our labor force, in this case, they give it to us, 25. They also give us our employed people, okay, 20. We don't need that number as much. We need how many people are unemployed, which is 5, 20%. Okay. One last little tip for you as you're looking at these. Keep in mind, in a test situation, you're not going to be able to use your calculator if you're in person. Okay, so the math has to be easy. So if you were to end up with a question, that ends up like 6 divided by 25, they're not going to do that to you. Okay, the math is going to be super rounded off most of the time, if not all the time. So kind of keep that in mind. If you get kind of weird answers, kind of double check, go back, and if you can't do a lot of that math in your head, that might be a red flag as to you're missing something. Okay, hope this helps you out. Email me with questions, and we will talk soon.